as the market's gone down, unfortunately, it has not weeded out some of these yahoos that don't know how to properly evaluate properties and are making offers to sellers that they can't follow through on. And I know exactly the mistake that these guys made. We went on an appointment on Monday, and it was a probate lead, a lady from Alabama, and she inherited a property here in Atlanta. This property was in DeKalb County, and she inherited this property, and there's a bunch of heirs involved, and it's a hoarder house. The house is full of stuff, and it's 1936 build. It needs a significant amount of work. It's in a pretty decent location, but the reason I'm making this video is because I thought we were going a little crazy here, because we had made, I think we offered her $100,000 on the property, and or right around 100, maybe it was 90 something. I don't remember. It was right around 90 or 100 or something like that. And we call her back to follow up today because she, what we call the investor dog and pony show, where they just do this rotating door of investors coming through the house and making offers. And honestly, we usually don't participate in those scenarios because we tell those people all this time, we're not going to be your highest offer, but we are going to close on a property that we say we're going to buy. But there are a lot of investors out there who do not do that, who do not operate with the same level of ethics that we do. And I'm not saying this to brag at all. But in this situation, this person, we offered her, it was like right around $100,000. This house, it was a 1930s house. It was easily $120,000 rehab cost. And I ran the numbers on this property, and I couldn't come up with an after repaired value, what it would be worth all fixed up, of more than like around $320,000. Okay, so mind you, we're easily 120 grand, probably getting a little bit higher than that on a rehab cost. The clean out alone was going to be $10,000 just to clean the house out of all the junk. 10 grand just to clean it out. Okay, because they wanted to sell it with everything in it. All right, so we made her we went out, did the assessment. It's a 1930s house. These houses need literally everything replaced. HVAC, plumbing, electrical, roof, all the mechanicals. There's usually foundation problems. In this case, it had this detached garage that was literally a scraper. It needed to be torn down. There was no hope saving this garage. It just needed to be torn down, right? Okay, so this house needed all this work. The lot was overgrown. The driveway was busted up. It needed a new driveway. It needed porches and decks, and it needed everything, and flooring inside, and walls moved. And I mean, it literally was very original, right? And I assessed this value at no more than $320,000. The property right next door to it. Now, mind you, this property was on a main road, and it was actually zoned commercial because it was on the main road. But most of the houses on this road were also zoned commercial, but they were residential properties. Basically, the county had zoned it that way in the future. Now, this property was right at the corner of East Lake. If you know where East Lake is, it's kind of a very prestigious part of Atlanta. And if you have an East Lake address, your property's worth more money. That's just how it goes. This property was a stone's throw from the line of East Lake, but it was not in East Lake, which matters in the world of real estate. It really matters. And just to the north of this property, I kid you not, directly behind this property was a neighborhood with a street, and there were houses. And starting at this street was City of Decatur. And all of those houses were worth more money because they were in City of Decatur. And so you go over here and you're in East Lake, and you go here and you're in City of Decatur, right? So this property we looked at was not in City of Decatur. It was not in East Lake. So it was an unincorporated DeKalb County, and it was on the main road. And typically when it's on a main busy road, it does detract in value. So the point I was trying to make earlier was the property right next to it sold in 2020 for $300,000, and it was like a counselor's office or therapist's office or psychologist or something like that. It was basically the same size house as this one, just a little old ranch house, these little old ranches in Atlanta. And it had been totally rehabbed and turned into an office building. But the property next to it was had an entrance on a side street, so it was actually more accessible and it had better parking than this particular property we were looking at. So this one we looked at was right on the main drag, so getting in and out of it was kind of difficult because of traffic, and trying to turn left would be kind of a pain in the butt because of traffic, and that matters when it comes to commercial real estate. So we looked at it. I sat there for an hour running comps and looking at numbers and looking at what this place would rent for, and looking at trying to do all these calculations, because I figured that the highest and best use of this property is going to actually be sort of renovating it and turning it into like a doctor's office or like a lawyer's office or an insurance office or a small sort of single tenant sort of office. You know, you guys probably all know that, right? You drive down the road and you see what was an old house at one time is now an attorney's office or something, right? This is that kind of house. It's just a little, I think it was like 1,100 square foot house. It wasn't very big. It was 3 bedrooms, 1 bath, or I think it might have been 2 bedrooms, 1 bath. And anyway, so the property next door sold for $300,000. One a few doors down sold for $320,000 last year. It was the same kind of business, right? It was a business on the main road. So really the one like 4 doors down was a fantastic comp to this one. Comp means comparable, right? So that one sold for $320,000. This one sold for $300,000. I'm looking at the numbers. It's not in Eastlake. It's not in City of Decatur. So you can't use comparable properties from those areas. If you know anything about analyzing and how appraisers look at properties down in the city, is that the neighborhood matters, right? So I looked at these comps and it was not worth that. Now the comps in the neighborhood behind it, some houses had sold for like $500,000, totally rehabbed. Crazy, because you could throw a rock to them from this other one that sold for $320,000, right? I mean, literally throw a rock to it. But it matters because it was in City of Decatur. It was over the line. It was in actually a nicer neighborhood. That one was built in the 1950s. So it was a little bit newer property and also a little bit larger. It was like the one that sold for $500,000 was like almost 2,000 square feet, right? So you'd have to do an addition. And right now in Atlanta, the cost of construction is, you're spending at least $150 a square foot to do an addition. So it's pretty expensive to add additions to get more square footage here. So again, I'm rambling here, and I know I'm rambling, but all these facts are important to the story. So we go in, we make an offer, we offer right around $100,000. It's not a huge, massive payday to us. I think that would be a net profit at the end of the day to us of probably about, I think it was like $45,000, which to the average person sounds like a lot. But when you get into these big $100,000+ rehabs, this project could easily take 6 to 9 months to complete. And the market is very volatile right now and going down. So in 6 to 9 months, prices could be even lower than what we're at right now. I don't know. Nobody knows. Anyone who says they know, they're lying to you. I don't have a crystal ball. But prices are going down in the market right now. So I'm looking at this thing and I'm saying it can't be worth any more than $320,000. I just don't see it. Plus it needs easily $120,000 to $150,000. So you do the math right there. 320 minus 120 is $200,000, right? Okay, well, we offered her 100. Does that mean you're making 100 profit? No, it doesn't mean I'm making 100 profit, because I've got holding costs, closing costs, insurance, all these other costs. So my net profit at the end of the day on that property is probably going to be in the ballpark of like $45,000 net profit at the end of the day. That would take me 9 months to complete that project, more than likely 9 months, because also this is in DeKalb County. And dealing with DeKalb County and getting permits in DeKalb County and going through that construction process is a royal pain in the rear end, and it takes months longer. This is why we really don't do a lot of projects down there anymore, is because it takes us so long just to get building permits, and dealing with the inspection departments down there and all that stuff and going through all that crap, to me, is not worth it. It's not worth the trouble. It's so much of a pain in the butt. There's so much red tape. I don't like dealing with it. That's why we just don't do a ton. but this looked like a good one. It was a probate lead. This person inherited it. She didn't even live here in the state. Seemed like, hey, we could help her out. She didn't want to mess with the property. Nobody wanted to clean it out. All the heirs were older and none of them had the physical abilities to clean this property out. So we look at it, we make her an offer. Anyways, she says, well, I've got offers on the table now. I've got 2 offers for $150,000 and I've got another offer for $180,000. And I'm looking at this and I'm like, there's no way. There's no way that they offered her that much money for that house. So then I'm like, I start second guessing myself here. So then I call up one of my money partners that loans me money on deals and partners on deals with me over the years. I've known this gentleman for a number of years. Fantastic guy. And this gentleman owns a whole bunch of commercial real estate in town in Atlanta, in DeKalb County, in city of Atlanta. He's done multiple big development projects, worked with city of Atlanta. He's done affordable housing with the city. If anyone knows Atlanta real estate, it's this guy. He knows it. He is like in the who's who of that. He's been in the business for a long time. He owns more rental properties and commercial properties and investment properties than honestly I can't even imagine, right? He also owns a lending business where he loans money. And so he has to analyze these properties and determine whether, he thinks that's a good deal or not, because he's fronting his money out to loan money on this property. He's got to evaluate whether he thinks it's a risk or not. So I call him up and I'm like, because I know his office is just right down the road, actually on the same road, a couple miles further down towards Atlanta. So I called him up and I said, hey man, can you look at this property with me? Like, I just want to make sure I'm not going crazy here. So he takes a look at it and he's like, yeah, those guys are nuts. They're not going to, that's not going to close. They're not going to pay $180 for that property. It is not worth that. And he looks at my numbers and looks at everything. He said, you're right. Like you're not crazy. Your numbers are right. This property is not worth more than $300,000 to $320,000 once it's all done. And he said, this property would only rent for probably $2,000, $2,100 a month is all it would make in gross rent from a lawyer or a insurance agent or somebody renting it, because it's a small little space. It's only 1,000 square feet. It does sort of have a crappy way to get in and out of it, so people will look at that as a detractor. Said you won't get more than $2,000, $2,100 in rent. So anyone who knows anything about real estate, $2,000 in rent on a property that you're in it for $300,000 is not a good investment. That's not a good number to be at. So sometimes I second guess myself, and I called him and I was like, I just want to make sure I'm not crazy, because these guys are offering $150,000 and $180,000. And we went out and looked at this thing and it's easily $120,000 rehab, probably more. But there's so much junk in the house that we couldn't see the foundation, couldn't see the issues with it. There was so much junk. So I'm looking at this and I second guessed myself, and he was like, no, your numbers were right. I agree with you there. You were spot on. These guys are not going to close on this transaction. So I know this video is really, really long, but I wanted to do this video because this happens all the time, and it's happening all the time right now, where as the market's gone down, unfortunately, it has not weeded out some of these yahoos that don't know how to properly evaluate properties and are making offers to sellers that they can't follow through on. And I know exactly the mistake that these guys made. They looked at city of Eastlake, which is like literally a stone's throw away, just right down the street. I mean, not even 1/8 of a mile away is the Eastlake line. Values in Eastlake are significantly higher. So they probably saw comparable sales in Eastlake in the $500,000 range. So this particular house in city of Eastlake with a small addition and a nice rehab would probably sell for high $400,000, low $500,000, right? Or going north into city of Decatur, which again is just a stone's throw away from this property. Those values there were some comparables that were selling in the $400,000 and the $500,000 range. There was a sort of a newer construction on that street right behind it that sold for $650,000. But this house is not newer construction. It's not in city of Decatur. It's on a main road, it is not worth that. And real estate is very specific to those things. So I know that these guys that made these offers are more than likely inexperienced, and they just did a quick look at comparables and didn't pay attention to the fact that those other comps were in Eastlake and they were in City of Decatur, and they used those as comparables to run their numbers. And now they came up with this inflated offer. But what's going to happen? These inexperienced people are typically wholesalers. And there's nothing wrong with wholesaling. We wholesale properties too, so there's nothing wrong with it. But these guys are more than likely going to try to wholesale this property to another buyer. So they're going to put it under contract at $180,000, and then they're going to start advertising this property out to their private, buyer network and trying to get bids from buyers to buy this property. Well, guess what? The only buyers buying right now in this market are the savvy people like myself who know our numbers, or the savvy people like my money guy that I called because I was second guessing myself, called him, hey, am I doing something wrong here? Like, maybe I'm off base here, reel me in. Cause I always call him if I've got something in City of Atlanta that's just really hard to analyze. I'll call him because he knows the answer, and he always does. And he's super smart, and I trust him. So these guys looked at these comps, and they're over evaluating their numbers. So what they're going to do is they're going to try to sell it to their investor network, and no one's going to buy it. And they're going to drop the price a little bit, and they're going to try to get another buyer, and no one's going to buy it. And they're going to drop the price a little bit more, and no one's still going to buy it because they're still way overpriced, because they need to be priced under $100,000 for this deal to make sense. But remember, they offered the seller $180,000. So they have to drop their price. They can't get to that point. The math doesn't work. So what's going to happen? This poor little old lady from Alabama, who doesn't even live here in Georgia, is going to think that her property is sold. And this person's going to keep dragging her along and egging her along and give me 2 more weeks, give me 2 more weeks, da-da-da-da. Because in the meantime, over here, he's trying to sell this property and he can't sell it. And you know why he can't sell it? Because he's overpriced. Because investors care about one thing, and that's price. Does the math work or does it not work? If the math doesn't work, I don't buy it. If the math works, I buy it. Well, guess what? At $180,000, the math doesn't work, because the people he's trying to sell it to are savvy enough to know that you can't use comps from Eastlake and you can't use comps from City of Decatur because they are not comparable properties. You have to use the $300,000 comps right around it, and those are the comparables. So he screwed the pooch. His numbers are way too high. He can't sell it. So then what's he going to do? He's going to waste this little old lady's time, probably 3, 4, 5 weeks of her time, and then he's going to cancel the contract. And then she's going to go back to the 150 guy and call him, and they're going to do the same thing. And before you know it, she's going to be 2, 3, 4, 5 months down the road. All of the other heirs involved in this estate are going to be pissed because they want their money, and she's promised them $150,000. And this other investor can't deliver, and the other guy at $150,000 can't deliver because they don't know how to accurately do their numbers, and they don't know this area well. And then all that they did was just waste her time. They got her hopes up, and they got the heirs' hopes up that they're going to be able to sell this property, and they're not going to be able to sell the property. I really hope that she does sell the property for $100,000, because $180,000. Like, take that check and laugh all the way to the bank. Because if that check cashes and you get that money, good for you, lady. Like, that's awesome. But I know the likelihood of that deal going through is very, very low. Maybe someone knows what I don't know here. Maybe I'm missing something here. But again, that's why I consulted my guy that I know about this, because if anybody knows, he knows. And I called him because I know the investor community in Atlanta is very small. We all know each other. And the ones that are actually actively doing deals, we all know each other. The money people and the lenders are all the same people. It's all a very small community. We all know each other. And we all laugh at the guy that's trying to sell the deal for $180 because he tries to because he's going to go, I'm probably going to get that same deal emailed to me next week from that guy. He's probably going to try to sell it to me for $200 or $190. He's probably going to try to make $10,000 or $20,000. And I'm going to look at that thing and I'm going to laugh. And I'm going to say, yeah, good luck with that, buddy. Nobody's buying that at that price. And everybody else, all the other investor friends I know, are going to look at that and say, yeah, good luck with that. Nobody's buying it for that price. and he's going to keep trying to sell it, and he's going to keep trying to sell it, and nobody's going to buy it. And he's going to drop his price all the way down to 180, and then he's probably going to go back and ask her for a price reduction, and then he's going to try to sell it again. And unless he gets a $100,000 price reduction, he's not selling that property. So I know this video was really, really long, and maybe you watched the whole thing, maybe you didn't. But again, I'm Brad with GeorgiaProbateResource.com. We're a real estate solutions company in Metro Atlanta. We buy houses all over the state of Georgia, and we specialize in the world of probate and inheritance properties. If you want an easy, quick, fast cash offer, we can make you a cash offer. We'll buy the house. We'll do as we agree. We do what we say we're going to do. Or if you want to go the traditional route, list it with an agent, go that route, do the normal way. I'm a licensed agent to myself with One Source in Woodstock. I'd be happy to discuss that with you. So thanks again for checking out this video. I really appreciate it. I hope you have a nice day. Bye-bye.